Today, we're going to take a look at how you create the equation of a line given various different things. And this comes up in all the different maths from algebra 1 through to pre-calculus. You're given some certain pieces of information and you've got to come up with the formula or equation of the line. So let's go take a look at how to get started. So this is a classic linear problem. Find the equation of the line passing through 2, comma 4 and negative 8, comma 1. So the first thing we'd want to remember is the parent equation for a line, and that looks like this, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept, and x, comma y are all the points on that line. So 2 comma 4 would be one of the x comma y's, and negative 8 comma 1 would be another one of the x comma y's. And that, of course, is remembering that an ordered pair is in the order x comma y. All right, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out that slope. So that requires remembering another formula. Our slope, which is represented by our m in our equation, is found by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, referring to these 2 points. Now, it does not matter which point you call the ones and which point you call the twos, as long as you are consistent on your top and on your bottom. So another way of representing this formula is rise over run, meaning the amount you go up or down if it's negative, and the run, the amount you go left or right. And yet another way of representing it is delta y over delta x, which means the difference in y's divided by the difference in x's. And all of these are great because rise over run reminds you your y goes on top, and delta reminds you that it doesn't matter what order you do your points as long as it's the same order. And then this one is, of course, the most specific, reminding you exactly what goes in. This, by the way, is a great place for a screenshot. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put our numbers into this formula. So you can see we took our y's. I decided to call this 0.2 and this 0.1. So I've got 4 minus 1 as my delta y. And then starting with the same point, right? So if I started with my 4, now I'm starting with my 2. 2 minus minus 8. All right, I did it this way on purpose to show you that if you encounter subtracting a negative, you need to remember, yes, that's correct, that becomes adding. So now we resolve that, 3 over 10. And so that is our slope. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to substitute that number into my formula. So now the last thing I need to do is I need to find my b. The way I do that is I take either of my 2 original points and I put them in for the x and the y in this equation. And just remember to pay attention to which is which. X, our 2 goes in for the x, and y, our 4 goes in for the y. Now I'll start to simplify. So I multiplied that 2, and what I chose to do actually was cancel it with the 10. So 3/5, and then my last step will be found by subtracting 3/5 from this 4. And then, of course, I need to get like denominators. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 5. And now I can do my subtraction. And so my b is an ugly 17/5, but nonetheless, I now can substitute that back into my equation for b and find that this is the equation for the line passing through these 2 points. Okay, let's take a look at how to do this if we're given different kind of information. So here's another form of it. Find the equation of the line parallel to 3x minus y equals 12 and passing through the point negative 1 comma 1. All right, again, I'm going to write my equation of a line so I always remember where I'm heading. Now I'm going to get my m in a different way. I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to manipulate it into this form so that I can pluck my m off it, because if a line is parallel to another line, you remember that means it has the same slope. All right, so my first step here to make this in y equals mx plus b form, I'm going to get rid of that 3x by using opposite operations and subtracting it from both sides. Now I'm close, but this is minus y and I want positive y. So I'm going to multiply both sides by -1. And in doing that, I multiply each term by that -1. And so this has now been changed into y equals 3x minus 12, which means that 3 is the slope of my new line, which is parallel to this. So now I'm going to insert that into the equation. And now I continue like I did the previous one, where this is an x comma y. If this line passes through this point, that means it is true when I put that point in. And now I just have to solve for b. So doing inverse operations, I find that my b is 4, which means y equals 3x plus 4 is the equation of the line parallel to this and passing through this. All right, now let's take a look at this same concept, but let's change parallel to perpendicular. All right, so let's remember that perpendicular lines have opposite inverse slopes. Opposite means their signs are the opposite. So positive and negative, or negative and positive. Inverse means A over B goes to B over A. So that would look like the following. So if the slope of one line was 3, the slope of the perpendicular line would be -1/3. Or if the slope of one line was 1/2, the perpendicular line would be, that's right, -2, right? Opposite and inverses. All right, so we've already done some work. We remember that when we got this line into y equals mx plus b form, the equation was y equals 3x. So the perpendicular slope would be -1/3. And now we proceed from there. Y equals -1/3 x plus b, and we put in our xy point, and then we start to multiply through. And resolving that, we find that b is 2/3. So the equation of the line perpendicular to that and passing through that is y equals -1/3 x plus 2/3. Play around with that. Take a look at some of these other videos. Feel free to leave in the comments any subjects that you'd like to see me make a video about. And as always, keep mathing.